Hello, everybody, and thank you once again for tuning in to another episode of my Testimony Tuesday. It actually has been a while since I've done a Testimony Tuesday episode, but as you might know, if you have been following me, I'm actually in the middle of writing a book, and so actually revising a book and getting it out in this summer. And so I've not been on as much, but Kristen had a testimony that I just could not refuse. And I really want to get it out here because it not only is it connected to my book, but it's very, very dear to my heart. And so, but Krista, before we go into your testimony to talk about your amazing transformation and experience with marriage, and of course, from God's perspective, can you let everybody know who you are and what you do?
Thank you so much for having me. I have a lot of gratitude, and it is near and dear to my heart to be able to talk about this. So, my name is Kristen Walters, and I'm a relationship coach for women. And my true belief is God led me to this work because I was desperate. I was heading possibly for a second divorce, and I was heartbroken. And through my own marriage transformation and what I found that really honored God and transformed my marriage, I want to share that. If I could, I just want to share that because I'm so grateful. That's why.
Yeah. Yeah. And so, and not only did you have this great transformation and stop yourself from going to a second divorce, as you said, you got into coaching. So can you let people know a little bit about, your coaching and things like that too?
Sure, I would love to. So I knew I wanted to be a respectful wife, and I can go more into that, but I really didn't know how. And so I really was drawn to a body of work, and I, got coach certification that really helped me in a kind of a simple way transform my marriage. And I'm finding that it's very biblical too, like these very practical applications. And so I started a coaching practice, and I do talks. I do free talks about my story. And then I also have workshops on Zoom and some in person and also private coaching. It's primarily, like I said, I've done few in-person workshops, but it's mostly through Zoom. So,
Okay.
people can find me on Facebook. I have a private Facebook group for support for women, and email's fine too. I'm not super duper technologically
Savvy.
adept, but I'm getting
Yeah.
there. Mhm.
Yeah. And I think, of course, with this pandemic, this whole tech culture has just taken off into a whole new different direction. But you can find her group on marriage coaching for women on Facebook if anybody's interested in looking her up. So let's get into your testimony about marriage. Like I said, this is very, very dear to me, and I'm really excited to talk about it. So can you start from the beginning? Because you talked about being married before, and then now you were married again, and it seems like you're heading for another divorce. So if you want to dive right in, I'm all ears.
Oh, thank you. Okay, so, and I'll try to, when you get to be in your 50s, your story is long. So I'll try to get to the main points.
Yeah.
So, I got married in my 20s. I didn't have any relationship skills. I was raised in a Catholic faith, but had not given my life to Jesus. And there was a lot of difficulty in the marriage. And I see now, if I had had some skills, that could have possibly have been transformed. If I had had God, possibly too. But sadly, it ended in divorce. And through the grace of God, that relationship is restored today. And
Mm-hmm.
I have a lot of respect for my first husband, and we have 2 grown-up sons. Well, anyways, after that, because I was devastated, my mom sent me some Bible books, and I was receptive and ready.
Mm-hmm.
And I gave my life to Christ in 2005, focused on just raising up my sons.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought, someday God will give me another husband, another
Yeah.
chance at marriage. I kind of knew that in my heart, but my boys got launched. Thank you, God. They're off to college.
Mm-hmm.
And God gave me a second chance at marriage.
Mm-hmm.
So I met a wonderful man. We jumped in quite quickly. And within 4 months of our marriage, I really thought, this is not working. There were divorce
Wow.
threats. And I was like,
Wow.
how can this be? I'm a Christian woman. We love God, but it was dramatic. And in
Wow.
desperation, those late night Google searches, I did searches like how to be a Christian wife, how to be a surrendered wife, how to be a respectful wife, because I knew it was biblical, but I didn't know how.
Wow.
And
Wow.
what I found out about respect, for what it is for a man,
Mm,
is so much different than I would have thought.
mm,
And I got into a supportive group of other women who are also working on these marriage skills. And I mean, I couldn't get enough. I was absorbing, absorbing, absorbing. And it led to, I mean, I just can't even believe the marriage I have today because I changed.
right.
And that's
Right.
what I'd love to pass on to other women. Because a lot of women will say to me, why doesn't the man have to do anything? He will. He will.
Yeah.
Let it begin with me, right?
Yeah, 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 yeah. And it's so I mean, of course there's a lot of things. I always say what stands out to me when people are talking, but one of the things that stood out to me is that this idea about, thinking that because you're Christian and you love God, that things are just supposed to kind of fall in place. And that's not how it happens. And this is not even just with marriage. There are always lessons God is trying to teach us. And a lot of times we get so frustrated and even discouraged by the difficulties, and we're wondering, like, well, why is this not working? It's usually because you need to learn something. And so God is trying to use that situation to teach you something, but we just want the situation to be over. We don't want to go through. And so that is one of the things about I talk about why God allows bad things to happen. And the main reason is to teach us stuff, because we don't fully understand the depth of something until we actually have to go through the experience of it. And we learn much more deeply by experience than we do by just reading and things like that. And so those things do happen. And so a lot of times people just, have this idea that in marriage, especially all these preconceived ideas about marriage, because even though you get married and you might think you have this, good ideas about marriage, you have still picked up ideas from marriage along the way in your life. And a lot of them are not aligned biblically, how God created marriage to be. And so you go into marriage with these expectations that really start to undermine the marriage. And then you start having problems on the surface. And then God is like, okay, in my mind, it's like, this is a perfect opportunity to teach you some deeper principles and truths about life. And so we have to grab hold of those opportunities to learn. And so, and not just think because we're Christian, things like that. I know for me, I felt like my marriage would never end. Like I'm gonna work hard, I'm gonna be the best wife, I'm gonna do this. And I didn't even realize that it takes two. Like, yeah, you can be as good as you want to be, but if the other person is not, it's not, it was almost a little bit selfish, I would say,
Mm,
because I put everything on me, depending on me and me being a good wife, and everything will work. And it's like, no, it's not all about you. It's about you merging with this other person. And so that was one of the lessons that I learned. So
yeah.
can you talk about a little bit of the lessons that you learned? Because I know, you talked about practical tips. And of course, you don't have to go through everything, but just tell us a few of the things that you learned that transform your marriage.
Yeah, thank you. I would love to. And I love your wisdom. And so I really came into the marriage thinking I knew better. I knew
Mm.
the right way to do things. Um, I'm tough. I'm strong. I've raised my boys on my own practically. And
Oh,
so,
wow.
and it's not like I set out to do this, but it
Yeah.
happened. I was really controlling of my
Wow.
husband. I was telling him how to eat better, career better, parent his own grown-up kids, and I didn't realize why that was just not the dynamic that was going to honor God. It was,
Yeah.
I almost created a mother-son dynamic where I was so bossy, but I didn't see it.
Wow. 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 Yeah.
And,
Yeah.
yeah. And
Go
so
ahead.
I now say to myself, I want to be his lover, not his mother. I told you that before, right? That's I'm his we're and I'm learning ways, and I teach these to other women to not say what might be on the tip of my tongue of how to do things better.
Yeah.
Because men crave respect.
Yeah. Yeah.
I married an amazing guy. I wouldn't have, married him if I didn't think he was amazing. So I don't know. I started to become his mother little by
Yeah.
little.
Yeah.
And he
Yeah.
was fighting it. So that was the
Yeah.
escalation of fighting.
Exactly. Wow. So I mean, it just again, and I talk about this in my book, and even my other podcast. A lot of times we look at marriage as just getting what we want. We want a partner, we want a friend, we want somebody to do this with us, that with us, even when it comes to finances, everything. But spiritual reasons for getting married are different. They are for your mental, spiritual, emotional maturity, and you don't see where you need to grow. Just like you said, you didn't see it. You don't see where you need to grow until there's a problem, because the problem now pushes you to examine yourself. Okay, what is actually going on here? And as soon as you're open to examining yourself, that's when God is ready to, like, okay, let me teach you something that's going to help you and grow you as a person. But a lot of the times we don't see it, and then we just blame our partner. We just say, well, you're the one who's doing this, and if you just do this, stuff would be better, and if you just stop doing this. But whenever there's a problem, both people are contributing to the problem, and you have to figure out how you are contributing to the problem, and not be so concerned with how your husband or your partner is contributing to the problem until you deal with your side of it first, because you're doing something. It's never, anytime you talk to somebody and they say, well, the problem is that my spouse, no, stop. Own your part first.
Yeah.
Do your part first. Then we'll talk about your spouse. But let's do your part first. So I really like that you were able to kind of see and examine yourself and see. And it takes some humility, actually, to say, you know what, I'm not, this is not, what I'm doing is not helping. What I'm doing is not right. I'm actually causing the problem. And I like that you were willing and ready to do that. So can you talk a little bit about, if did you want to say anything about what I just said?
Well, I loved just hearing you because it sparked. So underneath all this, me being controlling was really fear. Okay. And
Yes.
that's where God was talking to me about, you talk that you have faith over fear. Are you living it? And
Yes.
so whatever thing I try to and that's, I get my own coaching, I get my own relationship coaching, and I have a lot of peer coaching. So I see it's a lot of it was rooted in fear. And
Yeah. Yeah.
so, yes, I wanted to just point that out. And then, like you said, taking part in looking at my, and being my behavior and being humble. So for example, something that just happened kind of recently, I thought my husband was critical of me, and I got some coaching, and the coach was able to point out a blind spot, that there was a little bit of underlying disrespect that came first
Mm.
that I wouldn't have
Mm.
been able to see.
Mm.
And it was as subtle as my husband asked if we could go somewhere, and I said, oh, you probably forgot I'm under the weather. And I didn't realize that was kind of disrespectful, because I was saying, almost like underneath that was, don't you remember? And
Mm.
so even though I might have thought then he was critical of me, when I got coaching on this, like I said, but when I was able to say to him, I apologize for being disrespectful, when I said, hey, you probably forgot I was sick, the
Mm.
ice melted.
Yes, yes. Yeah, and that's the thing, because it's all about, like, okay, so I don't want to go too deep into this because I can, but we create our reality. We create our environment. That is a godlike quality that we have. So spirit comes first, which is ideas and thinking, and then we manifest those things into our reality. And so a lot of times we're putting stuff out there that shape our reality, and the other person is responding to what we're putting out there because of however what we have done affects or rubs their reality, and then boom, you have friction. But if you can be mindful of what you're bringing, what you're putting in the air, and then you respond differently, you'll be surprised at now how that, because just like you might affect them negatively, you can also affect them positively. And when you do that, you'll be surprised the way it changes the dynamic, sometimes very, very fast. I mean, I know for some people, some people need some work on both ends, but a lot of times you can kind of see the results in this very, very fast, even from very simple words. You just rephrase the sentence and say it in a different way, and you get a totally different response. And so that's the wisdom of God, though, because some people will say, well, why do I have to change what I say? Like, that's, I don't have to go through all that and watch my words. But when you do that and it's able to cultivate a different environment in your household, it's not only worth it, but that's what wisdom is. Wisdom is understanding what works and what doesn't work and how to use it to get the results that you're expecting or that you want.
I so much agree with that. And it's like I live that because, like, here's an example. I really have gotten so empowered that I can inspire my husband to be my hero
Yeah.
from the smallest things to the biggest things. And they seem, like you said, like minor, like you did, but just the way I say something can either
Yeah.
inspire him and attract him or repel him by the
Yeah.
way and how I say it. It's
Yeah.
very practical, right? It's practical.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then men are, I think sometimes they're more sensitive than we women like to acknowledge, because we see them as, especially they're usually very stern and logical, and you kind of don't pay as much attention to their emotional side, but it's there. And they want, and we talked about this before, they want their wives to be happy. They want to feel like that they are the knight in shining armor, that you love and that you respect them. Like, and when you do even small things that you may realize is not affecting them that way, and they get the message that they're not being that, then a lot of times, especially for some men, it kind of causes them to react not necessarily in the best way. But if you can kind of feed into that, the need that they have, then they'll be that, because that's what they want anyway. So yeah.
Oh, I hear you, and I love that because I'm looking for, with all people now, my grown-up sons, my husband, the evidence of what I want to see.
Yeah,
And it's
exactly.
there, and that is biblical, right?
Yeah,
Because I'm going
exactly.
to fix my eyes on what is admirable and lovely and all that, and it's there. And so I see now all the ways my husband wants to please me
Yeah.
because I'm looking at it. Where
Yeah.
before I was more critical, and because I'm coming out of fear.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. And what you feed is what grows. So whatever you feed, and it goes back to the Bible with the seed, this reaping and sowing principle. So whatever you plant and whatever you feed, that's what's going to grow. So if you want your husband to respond differently, you have to plant different seeds and water those seeds, and then you'll see that most of the time. Now, I'm not going to say that that's like it will work that same way for everybody, but typically it will. Some people do have some serious underlying issues that need to be dealt with before they can get there. And I do think that it's up to us as partners to help work with them through that process and not necessarily take it personally all the time. But typically that principle works very, very well in not just marriage, but all relationships. Whatever you water, that's what will grow. If you're always watering tension and mistrust and disrespect, then don't be surprised when you have a disrespectful, chaotic, dysfunctional relationship, because that's what you're feeding. So now, can you talk about maybe another lesson, another lesson that you
I
learned?
I
Yeah.
would love to. I would love to. So I've been really, and I don't do this perfectly, but I've been really learning to look at my husband's heart message.
Mm,
Okay, his heart message and what he says and does, um, and I used to fight him on this, but he always wants to protect me.
mm.
Okay, and there was that part of me was like, hey, I raised these boys on my own. I can do anything, and so he would give me instructions
Mm.
like make sure you um, you know, look both ways when you're going across an intersection. And I used to fight him and say, come on, I'm 50, and that would cause tension. And so I had to look at his heart message, and his heart message. And actually, sometimes he would even talk harsh, like say we're at the airport, or he'd be like,
Mhm.
okay, move over here, do this. And I would react and we would fight. Okay. But
Mm.
now I'm learning God is teaching me, look at his heart message.
Mm.
It's the story I tell myself.
Mm.
He wants me safe. He wants
Mm.
to protect me.
Mhm.
And that makes me see it a whole different way.
Yeah, and respond a different way. Yeah, yeah. And even with what you're saying about the way you respond, because I see a lot of the time, especially in Christianity, this idea that women are just supposed to be quiet, not say anything, be sweet and nice, and kind of in some instances like not address problems. Like, that is not what submission is. Submission is not not addressing problems. It's the way you address the problem. So if you get out of this mindset, I like what you're saying, of being offended, it opens you to respond in a different way. And then they can receive the issue that you point out better. So for example, I will use what you said. So say he's being forceful, and then you get upset. Hey, I'm grown. I don't need you to tell me what to do, and but you don't respond that way, and you have it in your mind, oh, he just wants to protect me and stuff like that. You can say, oh honey, that's really sweet. You just look out for me so much. That's why I like being around you, because I always know you're going to look out for me and make sure I'm okay. And then of course he'll respond in a loving way. You can say, but you could say it a little bit differently,
Yes, yes.
and try to work that in there in a nice way without it. But you soften him up for the suggestion. So it's like, oh, okay, yeah, So I found that a lot, that it works, in my case. But something else that I want to point out really quickly that you said, because it really goes to the state of mind a lot of women have now with, hey, I raised my own kids, I'm independent, I don't need your help. Like, I've seen women get upset about men opening doors for them. Like, don't open the door for me, I can open the door. And then they take it in a negative way. So have you noticed this in the culture, or what do you think about that?
Well, what I have learned to be a better receiver,
Okay.
and that's like very feminine.
Mm-hmm.
And so I've learned through my coaching practice, and what I've learned, that the heart of men, they want to be heroes.
Yeah.
And whether they're 80 or 18. And so I have learned to be a better receiver. So if someone wants to open a door for me, thank you.
Yeah.
On an airplane, a teenager wants to lift a bag for me, thank you.
Yeah.
And it's just, it doesn't mean I can't do those things myself.
Yeah.
But let someone else be the hero. It's good for their heart.
Yeah.
And I had this older man. He was someone I worked with, and he always wanted to help me move things when we were set up for events. And I was like, I learned to just step back and let him.
Yeah.
And it was so sweet, because he said, I'm as strong as an ox. And I'm like, yes, you are, and it's just great.
Yeah, that's beautiful. Yeah. And that's what God is trying to get us to, like what you say in your husband's heart message, is the heart of the matter. Because a lot of time it has very little to do with all this stuff that we see on the surface. There's no trivial things that's going on. Hey, don't open the door for me. Don't talk to me like that. It's like, you have to look a little bit deeper at things and understand the heart of them if you really want to cultivate an environment that you want. It's not like you're doing something that is going to hurt you in the long run, or you're just forced to live this existence where you can't speak. That these things will get you the results that you actually are looking for. And so that's what God wants for us. He's like, hey, I'm trying to show you how to get what you want. So if you just listen, then we can get there. So did you have anything else you wanted to add, even what I said before about, softening him up for the suggestion?
Yeah, it's so, what I've learned is, and the last thing in the world my husband wants to do is hurt me and hurt my feelings, right? That's the last thing. And I learned this, like I said, I've learned this. But if I point that out, like, hey, you did this, that never serves me.
Yeah.
Because he'll get more defensive.
Yeah.
But if I say something soft and like, without pointing a finger, like suppose he's like, oh, move over here. And I say, I'll just learn this little tool. Ouch. He's like, oh yeah, I didn't mean to say it like that.
Yeah.
The last thing I've had to learn these very practical things, because I was so used to defending myself.
Yeah.
And, God is my defender. I can rely on my feminine gifts that God gave me and trust that most men around me are good guys.
Yeah, they are. Go ahead.
No, and I want to think the best, because that's respectful.
Yeah, exactly. And that's love. Actually, it's to see the best in people, because, and even like, based on the conversation that we're having, it's very easy to look at it like the woman just has to do everything, and she has to just, put herself in this small box to kind of feed the man. But you're learning, and by you responding that way, he's actually learning too. And you guys are learning together. So it's not about you have to do all this and he gets to be like this or whatever. He's learning, and eventually, especially if you cultivate the relationship and follow God's direction, you will start to see those changes in him as well. So it's not just about you do everything and he gets to be whatever. It's about creating an environment where you both can grow, not only spiritually, but emotionally and mentally together. So, yeah.
So true, so true. And I always get to honor myself with my, my desires. I can always say, I would love this, I would love that. And my husband rises to be my hero. And
Yeah.
even if it's something like it's, people hear the term, oh, surrendered wife. It doesn't mean subjugated.
Yeah, exactly.
It's to me,
Exactly.
it's like surrender to what I can't change anyways
Yeah.
by forcing. But
Yeah.
suppose my husband has an idea that I might not think fits for me. I can always say, I've learned these little practical phrases. I hear you, and I would love to stay here. Like, say he
Yeah.
wanted to move. I mean, that's a
Yeah.
pretty big thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, that sounds fun. I hear you. I would love to stay where we are.
Yeah. Yeah.
And not a but, it's an and.
Yeah. Right.
So,
And something that you said that I wanted to, it came to my mind, when women are supposed to submit in marriage. So it's two things. One is, um I lost my train of thought. Anyway, finish what you were saying. It'll come back.
well, I love how we're just sparking ideas in each other, and this could
Yeah.
be a
Yeah.
long conversation, but I'm just, giving you the gist of it. But,
Yeah.
you know, the world says, if you're not happy with your guy, find a different one. But what
Yeah.
I've really learned is let it begin with me. Let the changes begin with me, because I want to honor God with what I say, with what I
Mm,
think,
mm,
with how I act, and I want to stand for marriage. And
mm.
it's really sad for me when I see people around me, marriages breaking up, when, because I've experienced it, some small changes can cause some big transformation.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, just like small things contribute to the bigger problems, small things contribute to improving the marriage overall too. And so I remembered what I wanted to say.
Good, good. Yeah.
And it's that when you're actually submitting to your husband, you're not really submitting to your husband. You're submitting to God. You're submitting to God and trusting that even in the midst of what's going on in your relationship, he sees it, he understands it, he's got you, he's going to guide you, and he's going to work things out for your good. And so a lot of times women have this idea like they don't want to submit to the man, and so they resist it, like what you're saying about, just power struggles in relationships. But when you do that, you're basically saying, God, I don't trust you with this relationship. I don't trust you to handle this and work this out for me. So I'm going to fix it myself, and I'm going to do it myself. And, but actually you're submitting to God. You're saying, hey, I don't like how this looks, but I trust you. And as long as you do that and you work on yourself in the process, that really gives God a lot, because he's always expecting us to bring an offering. And sometimes the offering is just our mind and our willingness. And we do that, and he can work with that. He can work with that and say, okay, now I can deal with your husband because you're not talking as much. So now I can communicate with him because now he can hear me instead of you. So yeah.
Yeah. Oh, I love the way you just put that. I love
Yeah.
that. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, so much about marriage. Like again, we can go into so many things about this conversation, and this is very dear to my heart. It's what my book is about, and it's not just about marriage. It's about your relationship with God. And so a lot of times we just focus on the marriage, but the marriage was meant to facilitate an deeper understanding of God, and he uses the marriage to teach us those things. And so once we grow in our marriage, growing with God, usually they coincide with each other very, very well. And so we have to look at the bigger picture, the heart of the matter, which is the bigger picture. And so I really love your message and everything like that. And even, the fact that, of course, we're different races, that you see that this is not just, this is a universal thing. It's not just a black thing or a white thing and stuff like
No.
that. It's a marriage thing. It's a human nature thing. It's something that we all have to learn to bring about the marriages that like you said, honors God. That it honors God. So, did you have anything else you would like to add and stuff? I know I've been talking a lot, but I really
Yeah,
like this topic. Yeah,
we're really in sync with each other. We believe the same things, and I
yeah,
really love that. And yeah, I just want to spread hope out there. Like you could think, oh my goodness, I can't, I don't know how to be a married woman. I'm heading for another divorce, and I prayed to God. I was on my knees. Show me another way, and
yeah,
He opened that door to me. And and that's what I want to share with other women. And these skills are not necessarily only for women that have faith, but it attracts women of all races that want to hold on to their marriages,
exactly,
honor God.
exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And so, what would you say? I mean, you talk about your coaching, and so I'm assuming that you talk about these things in your workshops and things like that. So, can you talk a little bit about how your testimony and the lessons you learn kind of filter into the coaching and workshops that you offer?
Yeah. So usually, there's the coaching methodology often involves a story from my own life
Mm-hmm.
where I could be a horrible warning or speak to one of these skills.
Okay.
And so typically we're working on relationship skills, and it's kind of
Okay.
broken down to like relinquishing control. Um, and then like the foundation is also self-care. I mean, that
Yeah.
everybody hears about that, but truly, what is that? Like truly, if I'm always looking with a critical eye at others, maybe I'm not looking at my own joy. And how do I
Exactly.
get back into my joy in the Lord?
Mm.
So anyways, the coaching, so the workshops cover the skills, but then the individual private, like if I did one-on-one with somebody, it's for their very own particular pain or their situation that they want to transform.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, yeah, and marriages need this. Like we were talking about this before we started recording. God, the enemy is always after marriages. That was the first kind of, I guess you can say system. That's probably not the right word, but the first big thing that God established on earth after creation was, of course, He made Adam, and then here's Eve, and it was marriage. And so, marriage is the foundation of kind of everything. It affects the culture, the communities, families, and history, future generations. And so the enemy is always out to destroy marriages, and so we really need to be very mindful of that and get all the help and the tools and the support and the insight that we can get, because the enemy is always going to be after your marriage. And so I would urge any woman that's struggling with marital situations, whether they're big or small, because even if they're small and you get help with the small stuff, it would then kind of filter into, getting help with the bigger stuff, or getting it before it gets to the bigger stuff. So any woman that's watching this that might be struggling in your marriage, again, big or small, I would urge you to reach out to Kristen and, take advantage of her coaching and her workshops. And I am also a certified relationship coach, and you can reach out to me as well. But we really need all the help that we can get. Like, it's really, really important to make sure your marriage it stays intact. So do you have any thoughts about that?
I absolutely do. I thought about when I first gave my life to Jesus and started going to church, and I felt ashamed. I was divorced, right?
Mm,
And I
mm.
had this misconception that everyone that was in a Christian marriage was doing it right.
Yeah.
And so I come here very humbly that I don't know how to do it right unless I get help. I'm on my
Yeah.
knees to God, and I need the community of supportive women who are also standing for marriage. So I
Amen.
stand for
Amen.
marriage, and I
Yeah.
stand for each woman's marriage. And each woman is really the expert on her own life and what's going to work for her. But these are tools. These are tools that help, like you
Yeah.
said. Um, and when I can be humble, I'm like, yeah, I was in a lot of pain, and even though I was Christian, right? I didn't get
Ex-
and God's working on me all the time. And
exactly.
yeah, and I, would love to just pass that hope on.
Yeah, yeah, it has to be passed on. It definitely has to be. So, thank you so much for sharing your testimony. I'm so blessed and charged by it. I wish we could go on and talk about this more, because I do think it's very, very important. And but I thank you for sharing your testimony and coming on. And again, if anybody's interested in learning more about Kristen and what she does, her links should be above this post, so you can reach out to her or even join her Facebook group, which is called Marriage Coaching for Women. Again, it's on Facebook, and you can just go in there and interact with her, and then even decide from there if you want to take advantage of her workshops and coaching. So without, I guess that's it. So thank you so much, Kristen, and you guys make sure you tune in next for my next Testimony Tuesday, or About My Father's Business Thursday, or also for my live show on Saturday at 12 p.m. So thanks again for tuning in, and I'll see you next time. Bye.
Thank you so much. I'm so inspired by all you do.
Yeah, thank you. You too.
Okay.
All
Bye
right,
now.
bye-bye.